Good evening, viewers. This is Aisha Ali, and you're watching Reconnecting Youth with Aisha. I'm bringing you this show so we can talk about sports, lifestyle, politics, and education, and reconnect youth. Good evening, beautiful people, and welcome to Reconnecting Youth with Aisha. I'm your host, Aisha Ali, and today we have a very special guest on our show who's bringing immense pride and honor to not only just the South Asian population in Virginia and around the United States, but to all the Muslims. Today we have on our show the Secretary of Education in Virginia, Mr. Atif Qarni. Thank you, Mr. Qarni, for joining us today.
Thank you, Aisha, for having me. Yes.
So first of all, I wanted to congratulate you for being the first and the youngest South Asian Muslim Secretary of Education in Virginia. How does it feel?
It feels great. It's a dream come true. I took the position, I was nominated on December 21st in front of my students and colleagues when the governor announced it at my school, and my friends and family were there as well. So it's a dream come true, and I'll tell you a little secret, it's the best job in the Commonwealth.
I'm sure. So you've been a former teacher, and it's very exciting for all the teachers and students in Virginia and all around the United States that a teacher has been for the first time elected. I just want to tell my audience, it's the first time that a teacher has been elected as Secretary of Education. So what changes, what benefits, what can the audience see? What are you going to bring to we're excited to see what you're going to bring to the table.
Since 1972, when the Constitution changed and this position was created in Virginia, a Secretary of Education, I'm the 19th Secretary of Education. There have been 18 before me, and all the folks who have served in this role have been university presidents, university professors or deans. This is the first time. What is more historic is that a teacher right from the trenches, from the classroom in a K-12 system was picked, and going from classroom to cabinet. It's something, it was a very bold statement from the governor, who really values education, and he wanted to send a statement is that he really wanted to improve the quality of education and have a teacher's perspective in Richmond. So that's it's really interesting serving in that role. And you asked the second part of your question is that what our priorities are going to be in the next 4 years. One of the things that we want to focus on is right now there are interdivisional inequities and intradivisional inequities. As we look at it, we have a very big state. And interdivisional inequities is that we have large school divisions who might have a lot of resources at their disposal, as opposed to small rural school divisions or urban school divisions who don't have a lot of resources. So, and we're looking to see how as a state we can help the smaller school divisions to address those inequities. And intra-division inequities is that within large school divisions, we have some schools that get a lot of resources, and then some don't get much at all. So we're trying to work with our local school boards and our superintendents in the school divisions in a positive way to see if we can, spread the wealth. And our goal basically is to provide a quality education and access for every Virginian. So that's what our focus will be. And we want to do that in a very positive way where we can highlight best practices and really share that across the Commonwealth.
So before we move forward, I want to ask you, since you were a teacher, a civics and economics teacher, prior to serving as Secretary of Education, what inspired you to come to this side, to the political side, and choose this position?
Well, as a civics and economics teacher, I often tell my students to not only learn the knowledge, but apply it by writing letters to our school board members or elected officials or meeting them. We have a lot of speakers coming in our school to talk about how the government works. We say that he should really be engaged in civic activities and do good things. So after some time, after telling the students that year after year, I started to believe in my own message that, hey, I really need to be more civically involved to try to improve the quality of education for the kids. And that's how I got involved, and started really putting together town halls and roundtables related to education. And that's how I caught the eye of the governor, for Governor Northam, and that's how we connected, and that's how I ended up in this position.
That's great. I hope this inspires like all the other youths out there to not just like to whatever they're excelling in, to take their education a step forward and to become involved in not just their, it starts by small steps, like involved in your community, then your state, and it gets bigger and bigger from there. So our show is about youth. So what is your plan? How do you plan, because you've been a teacher, so you've been in connection with the students like very closely in a classroom setting, but as a Secretary of Education, how do you plan to build your relationship with the youth and connect with them?
Yeah, so one of the things I've done is what my goal is in the next 4 years is to travel all across the Commonwealth. There are 95 school divisions, 95 counties, and there are 132 school divisions. And in my role, I oversee 4-year colleges and universities like UVA, Virginia Tech, George Mason, whatever have you. So any institution that receives state funding, also community colleges and higher ed centers, and also any preschool sites that get state funding as well, and libraries and museums. It's a vast, it's a big role. It's a big universe of folks to communicate with. So I want to get to all parts of the Commonwealth, starting from places like Lee County, which is the furthest most west county in Southwest Virginia, and all the way work my way all the way to the north, and get all over the state. And as far as to answer your first part of the question, is the youth is concerned, is that remain optimistic. There's going to be a lot of good things happening in the next 4 years as far as education arena is concerned in the Commonwealth. One of the focuses that we have is in early education. We want to work with our families and businesses and all the stakeholders to make sure that we can play some kind of a role to have early education and expand early education in Virginia to all the 3 and 4-year-olds, because if you have a strong foundation early on, especially when it's concerned to literacy, research has shown is that if you have a strong foundation in that early on, that people generally tend to be much more successful and live a more quality life. So we want to focus on early education. As far as K-12 is concerned, K through 12, we're trying to connect the business community and higher ed institutions to close the communication gap between families who have kids going through schools right now, so they can better plan their future. Because oftentimes we notice that kids will go on to college and higher ed institutions, they'll take a lot of classes that they don't use, so there's a lot of wastage of money and stuff. So we want to work with families to have better planning, so they can better plan out their future. So we're working on that. We're also focusing on jobs of the future to see what the curriculum looks like, to see if, for example, there are about 50,000 vacancies in Virginia in all kinds of fields, whether it's computer science, whether it's IT, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's administrative jobs, but we don't have a strong enough workforce to fill those vacancies, and we're trying to analyze why that is. So we're really looking at the curriculum in the K through 12 system, in community colleges, working with our higher ed institutions to make sure that we're producing a strong enough workforce to fill those jobs. We're also looking at what are the jobs that are going to be there in the future. There's a stigma that folks feel that you have to go to college to be successful. That is not true. We want to encourage folks to look at other options. There are different career pathways. You can get credentials at a higher ed center or at a community college and have a very strong quality of life working for a company and be really successful. You don't necessarily have to go to college. So we're working and addressing those concerns. As far as college is concerned, folks who are interested in going to college is making sure that we're trying to control the cost. We're working with the universities. I've met with every university president in Virginia that our office works with that gets public funding from the state. And they're actually very, very understanding. They care about education. They care about students. And we're trying to make sure that we keep the college tuition reasonable. We're also trying to make sure that our universities reflect what Virginia's population is like, so the diversity, the socioeconomic diversity, so have like a mixed economy in an institution, but also have a mix of diversity based on racial, ethnic backgrounds. So they're very passionate about that. So those, as that continuum from pre-K through college or different career pathways, we're looking at the whole big picture and addressing all those things. So I want people to remain optimistic. 4 years will go by really fast, but we will make a lot of headway.
We're having a really interesting conversation right here, but before we move forward, I would like to take a small, short break. Please don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
अब आपका होगा अपना घर, सपना घर। Your dreams can come true. SAI mortgage is key for you. अपना घर खरीदने और रीफाइनेंस करवाने के लिए SAI mortgage से राब्ता करें।
Don't make a move without SAI.
Welcome back from this short break. Before we went on our break, we were talking about how our Secretary of Education will be integrating and connecting with the youth, and which brings me to the next question here, and you mentioned this earlier. So what are some budgeting and curriculum changes that we can see that you're bringing, and we can see some major changes?
Yes, so with as far as early education is concerned, like preschool, we're looking at models from different states and also globally to see what models have worked in similar situations, and we're working with foundations and also looking at our state budget to see how, there's a lot of consensus that, we want to invest early. So we're having those conversations very seriously with multiple groups. As far as K through 12 and apprenticeship programs are concerned, we are again working with the business community that really wants to create apprenticeship programs, so they want to invest. So we're going to have some private funding that's going to come in to connect with school divisions. We're trying different models and pilots across the Commonwealth. We're also communicating with, for example, the Swiss embassy, and like having conversations with them to study their models of apprenticeship. There are already state based funding available for things like that, that we're trying to analyze to see how we're spending the money, and because I sit on a couple of boards, so I have a say in how we can best spend our money and so forth, and that and any additional outside training that might be needed for credentials, and then of course working with our higher ed institutions to continue to I don't know if you know, but many rankings for states actually rank Virginia as having the best university systems. And the reason for that is that we give universities a lot of autonomy, and that autonomy and individuality brings a lot of creativity. But there are some challenges with that, is that there might be not some consistency. So we're working to see there's a thing called dual enrollment, where as a high school student, you can take some courses that are transferable for community colleges, or community colleges courses can be transferable to universities. So we're trying to work with all three levels to make sure that there's some consistency there, so the quality is maintained for a course and it's easily transferable, so we can make courses more affordable and bring a little bit more efficiency. So those are the conversations we're having right now.
Okay, and another question for youths, because I know in high schools they offer a course that's called Economics and Finance, and that's where they teach you how you can manage your budget once you're out of high school, because some go to colleges and some go to just in the workforce. So is there going to be a specific special emphasis on it to make sure that on the teaching of the economics and finance course, so they can better prepare the students, so when they go out in the real world after graduating high school, they can be better prepared?
Yes. There is a concern from higher ed institutions that many kids might not be ready for college for certain courses, so we want to make sure we want to work with the school divisions to better prepare them, and have them take those courses early on, so they can be better ready for college. And then also businesses have a concern is that, well, can the schools do something to improve certain courses so they can, if folks are seeking credentials, that they can go for that route. So we are having those conversations with K-12, but it's a partnership, because what used to happen in the old day is that businesses would hire students without proper credential, but then train them themselves, but it's gotten very expensive, so they've kind of stopped doing that. And higher ed institutions also then, generally, and it still happens, is that freshman and sophomore year, kids have to take a lot of courses, preparatory courses for other higher level courses, But then that's very expensive for students. That's where you're, accumulating a lot of debt. So we're trying to make that more efficient and trying to work with our K-12 system, but it's a partnership though. It's a partnership between higher ed institutions. They have to play a role in helping work with us. So, if we're going to offer those courses in K-12, they should easily be able to be transferred in colleges so we can save kids money and they maintain the quality. Same thing with businesses. If we're going to offer courses that are going to give you credentials and prepare you for the workforce, then we need the business community to invest in that as well and help us create apprenticeship programs like paid internships or even non-paid internships. So those conversations already we're having, and everybody seems to be on the same page that we really need to invest in our youth. We really want to make sure that it's the governor's number one goal is to make Virginia the best place for businesses and have the best economy in the nation. That's his number one goal. And education is a big piece of that. So all the different stakeholders are having the communication together to really improve the process. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
okay.
It does. Which brings me to a question that we were having a conversation earlier, and you said that there for like specific areas, school districts and regions where there are more like higher population of Muslims, they're doing something about like the halal food and making that more accessible for the students. And could you please share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So, for example, Eid. Let's talk about that first, and I'll address your question about.
So yeah, this is a question that a lot of students like I just graduated from high school, and the one that are in schools, whether it's elementary, and this is a question for parents and stuff that we get off for holidays, like specific holidays people do. So since you're a Muslim Secretary of Education, will you be considering the Muslim holiday, which is Eid, a holiday off for that?
Yeah. So. Not because I'm in this role, but even prior to this role, teaching in Prince William County Public Schools, as a teacher, one of the things I did was that we have a good amount of Muslims in Prince William County. So we met with the superintendent, arranged for a conversation to see if we can, because the perfect attendance was being impacted when kids had to take off for Eid. So we worked with them. The school division said that if you take off for Eid, perfect attendance would not be impacted. And then they also encouraged schools that, hey, we should not do any kind of assessments and so forth on Eid. Eid as is coming up, and Ramadan, which is coming up and everything, this school year I'm looking at it, it's going to be like around SOL assessments. Yep. So we're having those conversations to see as the SOL scheduling is happening and so forth to make sure that we can be more accommodating so it doesn't have a negative impact on kids' performance. So we're having those conversations, and they're very open to the thing, and they're very inclusive to making sure that it's comfortable for everyone. Some of the school divisions, even in Virginia, what they've done, there's a high concentration of Muslim population, is that if Eid happens to fall on a school day, they've actually given the entire school division off because the population is so high. So that is something that other school divisions are also considering. And then answer your question about halal food, is that some of the food services directors are also considering, if we can do halal food. They're looking at different mechanisms of what are the logistics and so forth to find companies out there that can offer that for big school divisions. So they're definitely having those conversations, and they're very open to that. And not just for Muslims and stuff, but Virginia, a lot of the school divisions are really about inclusion, and they want to make it as comfortable for our diverse populations to be as comfortable as possible in our school divisions. So address the issue of when it comes to school lunch, and when it comes to the issue of holidays. So answer your question, yes, we're definitely having those conversations. We're making progress on those conversations, and we're continuing to make progress on the conversations.
I have a question from what you said earlier about, since you were looking at that SOL schedule and trying to fit that around Ramadan.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of there are not a lot, but like a few certain number of schools that are like IB schools, and then there are many schools in Virginia that are AP schools. So those testings fall around the time of SOLs. Like I know, especially like this year, it's going to be like a crunch time. So for those students who are taking AP or IB courses and they also have to take SOLs, is there a way that you're trying to fix this? I mean, like adjust the schedule to help those so they're not like. Because I know it's that time from April to like June when you're taking all those testings, it can be stressful for someone who has gone through. I can understand how stressful for it is.
Yes, it is a very stressful time, especially the junior year, and we are, when SOLs first started out, they were revolutionary for their time. They're definitely pros to having accountability and assessment and so forth. And the next step forward is that we're doing a high school redesign, standards of quality and standards of accreditation. There's changes happening right now because in 2015 there was a new act that was passed. It was called the Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaced No Child Left Behind. So gradually we're transitioning into that, which has addressed some of those concerns in general about looking at assessments, spreading them out a little bit, taking into account AP testing and stuff. A lot of the AP testing or SATs and so forth, those are federal things or related to higher institutions. And we do realize that there's a lot of crunch and stuff, so we're looking at how we can, as a state, play a role and work with the federal agencies also to, try to make that, as efficient as possible. So it's, it's really properly assessing kids, keeping the quality, but not creating this toxic testing environment. So we are definitely working on that and transitioning that, and you'll definitely see progress on that in the next 4 years.
Okay. Well, we know that you're taking a lot of steps and you're doing a lot forward. And like, what if like people like from the community or from the state, they want to reach out to you? How can they contact you and bring their ideas so that?
Yeah. So I'll give you my information. Our direct office line is 804-786-1151. That's 804-786-1151. And my personal email is Atif, A-T-I-F, dot Qarni, is Q-A-R-N-I, at governor.virginia, Virginia spelled out all the way, .gov. So please call or email. I'm very accessible and approachable if you have any concerns in any arena of education. It doesn't matter what age and everything, because we're lifetime learners, and how our office can help, because we are in a position to really, have access to everybody talking about education. So any way I can help your concerns for any Virginians, we're here to help.
Thank you for an insightful conversation. We're glad and we're excited to see what all you're about to do and all the changes that you're about to bring. We also, I want to tell my audience that we also must remember that change takes time, so it doesn't happen overnight. And we have a great Secretary of Education that's taking amazing steps. It's going to help people of all ages, from parents to the students, from the kids that are going to be going to colleges, that are in colleges, that will be graduating. So we have to be patient, and we have to make sure that we also help them and assist them and give them as much as help and cooperation that they need. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back next week again with another guest and another insightful conversation. Thank you so much. Stay safe and have a good night.